Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Ethical Consumer Podcast. I'm your host, Julia, and I am here with Nishchal Banskota of Nepal Tea. Welcome, Nishchal.
Thank you, Julia. Pleasure to be here.
I am happy to have you. I'm drinking a tisane. I am drinking a herbal tea, which is in fact not a tea. I just have some lemongrass and hot water in my mug right now. But I am a tea lover, also a coffee lover. I love all of the hot beverages. We've never had anyone on for tea before, so this is a new experience. And you have quite a historic business, so to say. This Nepal tea didn't necessarily start with you. This is like 40 or 50 years in the making. So this will be a cool conversation.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it.
It'll be fun. Now, the first question that I ask everybody, most everybody, is what is your favorite food or beverage?
You'll have to assume it's tea, right? Yes.
Uh-huh. One would
Um,
assume, but
no, I mean I like mostly a lot of exotic beverages. But if I had to, pick one single tea, I think it would be one of the teas that we've been producing fairly recently, but it was actually named after my mother. So Kumari Gold is what it's called, is a golden tips tea, and so Kumari literally translates to living goddess in Nepali language. And my mom's middle name is Kumari. And she was actually the first person who planted the tea bush in our garden many, many, many years ago. And that's why we dedicate that tea to her. And that obviously is one of my favorite beverages. And hence we dedicate that to my mother. And that's actually what I was drinking this morning.
oh, I love it. Wonderful. So this tea was named after your mother, and if I remember correctly from our previous conversation and double checking on the website, is it your great grandfather that this all kind of started with?
No, actually, it's my father.
Oh, it was your father. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Here
yeah.
I'm thinking we had multi
Uh-huh.
generations back, but so this is a
It
family business, but in a couple different iterations. Nepal Tea was started by you in 2016,
16.
but the Nepal Tea, not the company, but the actual tea has been around for much longer.
Yes, absolutely. So this is generational, as you said. Yes, it was started in 1984 by my father.
Okay.
I started in 2016, and I think where you got the third generation is I just hired my nephew, who's the third generation in tea. So there's three generations involved right now in this
Okay.
tea business.
Wonderful. And Nepal Tea's kind of extra wonderful thing is that it was the first certified organic tea in Nepal.
Yeah. So the name in Nepal is Kanchenjunga Tea Estate. So that is the company that my father started in 1984. Kanchenjunga is actually the third highest mountain in the world, and the our farm is basically in the foothills of Kanchenjunga Mountain, and that's basically the reason why my father named it Kanchenjunga Tea Estate. So that's in 1984, and I am bringing all of these amazing teas from that region, and we recently added a lot of new other farms as well. So a lot of other farms from Nepal and distributed here in the U.S.
Excellent. So we'll come back to the tea and the farming a little bit later. But what was your story? So this is a family business, but I'm going to assume that you did not just grow up under your father and decide, yes, I'm going to take over your tea business. You have your own story in conjunction with Nepal Tea. What did that
Mhm.
look like?
Yeah. Well, I must warn you, I cannot be brief. One of my weaknesses is not being brief.
I love it.
So I'm gonna go on a long story about how all of these things really started. So I'll go back and forth between my father's story and my story, just because it's so it intertwines with how Nepal tea really formed. Um, yeah. So when I have to begin in probably the 60s, when my father was just almost a teenager, and he had this great opportunity to visit Darjeeling. For people who might not know, Darjeeling is in India, which it borders our most eastern part of Nepal in Southeast Asia. So Darjeeling is known for amazing teas. It's actually called champagne of teas, right? So it's basically my father had this opportunity to visit Darjeeling, and what he saw there was just mesmerizing. The farmers basically living a decent life with their children getting decent education, farmers putting foods on their plates, and just doing their work. It was decent. Looking back to the neighboring village that he was born in, Pastor Fidim, it was not the same. People were having a very hard time to put foods on their plates, and it was very difficult situation. When he came back with a vision, basically a vision to really see if tea could be the catalyst to get the community out of poverty, and it sure did. What he did at that time was really looked at if tea was really feasible. So he gathered a lot of villagers who were very elderly people, gathered the villagers, and then said, "Hey, you know what? I want to start a tea farm here, just like in our neighboring side, and I think this is what's gonna get our community out of poverty." And if I always smile at this, everybody in the village at that time, the elderly people, basically just rejected his idea, just thinking, oh, there's this teenager now who wants to open a tea garden and all of that, and nobody believed him, basically, right? And then he did not lose hope. So what he did was, one of the first things that you'll have to do is test the soil if it's even fit for production, right? So he got, you know, 25 pounds of, bags of soil from his backyard, and got two of his friends, had like 3 or 4 sacks of soil in his back. And then he traveled almost 2 or 3 days to get to Siliguri, where the testing center was. There wasn't any, transportation at that point, at that time. So he basically walked and got to the Siliguri factory with 3 or 4 sacks of soil, like 25 pounds each or whatever, right? Gets there and then finds out that only a handful was necessary.
Oh
He
no.
didn't.
He could have stuffed his pockets and he's got this huge bag.
Exactly. But one of the best parts was the results were positive. So you could actually grow tea in the backyard. So at that point, what he did was he and my mom, his wife, basically got seeds from Darjeeling and China, and then started doing their own plantation in the backyard. So it takes about 4 years for the tea plants to grow and mature. So after 4 years, the tea's leaves started actually growing. And that was the point of time when, the villagers who had previously rejected his idea actually saw, and there was no need of convincing anymore. They were like, "Hey, you know what? You're actually doing what you said. So you know what? Take our land and just start farming." And so basically, that's when in the 19 early 80s, um, my father really got land from these farmers, and that land as a cooperative. So that land was part of the company, and that company was a part of the farmers. So it was basically a cooperative model where all of the farmers pool their lands. Almost 100 farmers pool their lands, about 120 acres of land, and then started planting tea. And in 1984 is the exact date when the first certified organic tea farm in Nepal was born, and that was Kanchenjunga Tea Estate. And it was unique then, and I say it's very unique now because of the model that we really work on, which is it's more of a social enterprise. So with the initial vision of really getting the community out of poverty, that is not just a side thing that we do. It's embedded in the core mission of the company that we are building a company, and tea is really the catalyst for social change. And what we do, the activities really that enforce and how we work through that is a lot of different things. So all of the farmers who cannot afford one, receive free housing. Daily necessities like rice, salt, oil, all of these things are provided in through a cooperative that the farmers themselves own, and they buy wholesale from these city and then distribute it among themselves. So they're saving some chunk of the retail amount. Similarly, we have Cow Bank Project, which is, we distribute cows to our farmers for extra income. So they can make dairy products and all these things, sell it directly in the market, which is extra income for them. Similarly, cow dung, which is an organic manure for us, we buy it as a factory. So that's another form of income for them. So that is there. And then the most important part, which is the educational scholarships. So all of the full-time farmers' children, all of them receive full scholarships to go to school. And that's how we really focus on empowering the next generation of farmers. Well, that's kind of like the whole model and the idea behind the social enterprise that we have in Nepal. And if I have to come back to my story, it really starts, and it's long. I'm sorry about that, but
No, it's a
I hope,
very interesting story though. I love it and I'm sure there are people like to hear it too because this is a multi-generational effort and your dad started it, you are taking it over, you have your nephew involved now too. Like I think it's important to hear everybody's story.
yeah, thank you. So my story really starts. I guess I was actually born in a tea farm. So that same tea farm, 1991, is when I was born. And in 17 months, I came to the city. Got into a decent school in the city, the capital city, Kathmandu, and then I think I was never really satisfied with the education system that was there in place in Nepal, really. And I knew for sure I wanted to come to America. I knew absolutely for sure because, I knew a little bit about, how practical the education here is. And that was the charm. So as soon as I finished my high school back in Nepal, I made up my mind I'm going to come to the US and then I'm just, studying here at that time, when I was 18, I wanted to be a CPA. So I was into numbers, I was into accounting. I really came to the US to become a very successful CPA and earn a lot of money. So I got into this private liberal arts college in New Hampshire. And I guess 4 years of liberal arts college completely killed the CPA in me. And now I'm here selling tea, right?
I love it.
But but the interesting part here is the whole idea of how all of my college experience really changed the person I am today is I really have to credit that to college experience. Really, it was a very tiny college, so it didn't have all of the things that I wanted to get involved in. So if I had gone to a big university, I think I would have become a member of some of the clubs and organizations that I was passionate about. But here, I couldn't find anything. So me and my friend, his name is Amigo, and he and I really were, trying to find our spaces in the small liberal arts college that we were in. And then we were kind of also homesick, so we wanted to do something and be able to go back to Nepal, like do a project or something. And we pitched that. We pitched a project where we would go and build a classroom for the underprivileged children in very rural parts of Nepal, and we will also take some American students with us. After a year-long work, we were able to do that. So the college trusted us to take a few American students from here to take them to rural location in Nepal and build a classroom. And I think that is when my life turned completely 360. And then I'm here, into a completely sphere of, passion in a way. So what happened over there is I found my biggest inspiration of life. That 7-year-old kid who I basically, he was in the school and then I told him, hey, what do you want to become in the future? Just jokingly, really. And then he said, I wanted to become a teacher. And I was like, huh, interesting. Okay, why do you want to become a teacher? And he said, you know what? I've been very fortunate to be able to study in this school, which is the first free private school in Nepal. Um, and there are many unfortunate students, unfortunate more than me, that have not been able to get education, and I want to be able to teach them. And that was a 7 year old talking. I had no clue what I was going to do with my life when I'm 20 years old. And this 7 year old kid already has a vision to change lives. And that was exactly the time, I think, when, the CPA was literally killed, and there was this, I don't know, like a beginning of my life new journey in a way. So I came back to college, and then showed the documentary that we had made, and it's on YouTube. We showed them to the college, and the college, basically everyone who was there were in tears. And great thing for us, they funded us for next year. So next year we are able to go to the same school, take 8 more students, and actually built a library for the same school. Amazing experience, and it really changed a lot of other people's lives as well. And then we were very successful in delivering this project. And in 2016 is when, 2015 is when I graduated, and then the project still continued. We had passed it on to our juniors, and then they had been able to successfully deliver other projects. And then I get a call from the president of our college. It was, hey, Nishal, you've been taking a lot of my students. I don't know what the hell are you doing with all of these students, but you know what? I'm going to come to Nepal and visit to see exactly what's going to happen. And then he comes with his daughters and other, American students, and so impressed by the work that we do, what that we did, that he and the college, the board decided to fund one Nepali student every single year to come to Kobe Sawyer's College for undergraduate studies free of cost. And that was my another turning point and my biggest achievement, if you'd ask me, like ever. Because that tiny thought of, I'm missing my home, I want to go back and do something for the underprivileged children, that thought really became such a big idea, where there's now a sustainable impact, where every single year one Nepali student has this opportunity to come to college in the US free of cost and do amazing things. And that's what I really was mesmerized. I was impressed with, what a decent and a genuine idea really can do, right? And I think that was also kind of like a little bit of a beginning of my real entrepreneurial journey. So yeah, after that, I it was the when I graduated, it was also the time Nepal was hit with the biggest earthquake, and a lot of people lost their lives. I came back to volunteer, and I did that for a while, about 2 or 3 months here and there. But that was also the time when I was finding and trying to work on the tea sector, and it was just amazing to see, how the impacts at that time, due to the earthquake, due to the the ban of the borders and all of these things, how it was impacting the farmers. And that was the time when I was really figuring out, what did I want to do with my life. I had this business degree from college, but I had this passion for social enterprise and getting people out of poverty, and really focusing on education for children. I was really searching for a platform which can really combine these two, like business and some social impact work. And there itself, I was really neglecting what was already there, which was our tea farm, which exactly had the business model that I was looking for, with this sustainable impact that I was looking for. So I told my father, I still remember that drive that we went to, and I told my father, hey, you know what? I think I am actually going to get involved in the tea business. And he was shocked. And I still remember his words. One sentence he told me was, great. Think about it for 2 more days, and then come back to me, because it's easy to get into the tea business, but it's very difficult to get out, is what he told me. And I was like, I still keep on thinking, what did that really mean? And And I think I've found the meaning really as I have developed the business here, and as I've gotten immersed in the business so much that it really meant, once you're in the tea business, you're not just in the tea business. You're in so many facets of the lives that you impact in our farms, in our, the second generations, the all of these different parts and avenues of life, that you'll make tea a career, a passion, a life goal, no matter what, and you're probably never going to get out, is probably what he meant. I'm still figuring it out, to be really honest, but that's how my whole idea really started. Um, and just come up some of the business point of views of why, and why I really wanted to get in this is, Nepal produces some of these amazing, amazing teas. And in the world, Nepal does not have its own identity in a way. Um, it's a very small country, obviously, but a lot of people don't know about Nepal. Let alone, the small country produces some amazing teas. So I really wanted to create an identity for Nepal tea itself, and more importantly, bridge that gap between the producers and the consumers. And I'm sure we'll talk about this bridging the gap, producers and consumers, a lot more later on. But that's basically how I started in 2016. I got here, and then I think even here, the ethos of the Kanchanjunga Tea Estate of building a community, building a community that is prosperous and that's living a healthy and decent life is still the mission, still the vision here. And why I can say that is I think what my father did was build a community with the producers. What I am trying to do is build a community with the consumers in a way. And I really believe that that's how my project really kick started. It was honestly through a Kickstarter program, Kickstarter fundraising that I did, where strangers, people who I had not known previously, trusted this kid from nowhere in a way, and I was able to do the biggest Kickstarter campaign in organic tea history and raising almost $50,000 to kickstart my business. And believe me, like most of these people, I didn't even know. They just believed in the idea. They believed in what I was envisioning and what I was trying to do. And that is the most humble and the best thing that can ever happen, really, when strangers come together for a common cause and really help somebody to build a business that's going to be sustainable and create sustainable impact. And till today, I believe I have a lot of customers. Almost more than 70% of the people that have backed me for this project in 2016 are still my customers, and they've been enjoying these amazing teas that we are really bringing into the US market and the world, very these days. So I'm really grateful for all and every single person who shared, the donated to the campaign and really helped me kickstart this thing. And yeah, I think that's what it's about. It's really about community. If you can, there's one synonym for tea, I would say it's community. Yeah, it helps you build community at the farm, and it has really helped me build community here in the US.
I love
Yeah,
it.
long story.
It's beautiful. There, I don't know if you can tell right now, maybe not through my MacBook camera, but there was a couple times I started tearing up a little bit. One with you talking about the 7-year-old child, such a beautiful, wise outlook on the world when he was so young, and then just the whole idea of community and everyone believing in that project enough to get it off the ground. You have such a community with your farmers and your producers from what it sounds like, and then also with your consumers too. And it sounds like you've kept the same model as the Kanchanjunga tea with the relationship with the producers and the growers, the farmers, and then you're taking it a step farther, which is what we're all about here at the podcast too, because we don't always get to see what happens behind the scenes, and it doesn't always feel like a community effort when you just go to the grocery store and buy something off the shelf and then you look at the package and think, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you eat it or you drink it. Like building, I think that it's obviously it's the whole premise behind the podcast. It's so important to know where our food and our beverages are coming from and to feel and to know that you're part of something bigger. I think it's something that all of us are just lacking sometimes, to feel like you're part of a bigger picture and a bigger project and affecting lives with your purchase of those that you don't know that's halfway around the world too. It's a
Yeah.
powerful thing, man.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I think that's what's been clear for me is I want to build this community and connect these two communities. So just when we think about everyone who's listening, I would really recommend think about the last beverage that you had. Your coffee, tea, whatever it is, your beer, maybe even, right? Think about that beverage, and think about the people or the person who made it. Do we even know them? Do we know where it's coming from? And that's one such an important question. And I think that is what led me to really, you know, um, make the company what it is today. That one question, because that's what I want to do. So right now, and I think that we've been able to take that a step further by, having a complete, clear traceability and transparency program where every single time you're buying our cup of tea, so in the packaging, there's a QR code. That QR code, when you scan that, what you'll see over there is exactly the time when it was produced, what elevation, who were the people behind. And I think traceability, transparency, all of these data should be humanized in a way so that you can picture the people behind them, right? So it will not just have numbers about, when was this packaged, when was this processed, when was this, all of these things happen, but it will always also show who were the people behind them, and give some, pictures of some of our farmers that plucked it, some of our farmers that processed it, some of the farmers that helped package it, and, who brought it to the US and when it got to you. So it really shows the complete, journey of that tea from the people who plucked it to the people who were sipping it and enjoying it. And that, when you can see that and enjoy that cup, I mean, drink that cup, you're going to enjoy that cup 10 times more. You're going to see exactly the people behind your teas. You're going to see exactly what and when and everything. You're going to see like the real people behind, real hands behind those tea. And you're not going to take your teas or coffee or any of these beverages for granted. And we should not, in fact, right? And I think that has been such a strong value in our company as well, where, that is what we want to preach. That is what we want to show to the world, that it's possible to connect these people from, the Western world to some of our countries and people in the Eastern part of the world, and see, bridge that gap. I think that's what I'm really looking forward to doing with Nepal Tea, and however it unfolds in the coming years.
It's wonderful. Do you still have contact with that 7-year-old kid? Do you remember who that was at the school, or just the fact that all
Yeah,
of this has been started by meshing and combining these two parts of the world? I think it's just, I can't get over that. It's such a cool thing. Your entire project and your entire history is just making this connection.
yeah. I mean, I do remember him. I do have the school in my contact. I do not have the person specifically in contact, but I'm sure he's grown up and probably doing more amazing things than what we are trying to do here. And I'm seriously hoping the next time I go back to Nepal, I can actually meet him.
Yeah.
It's going to be super amazing, just to, just to tell him that, hey, you were the person who inspired me to do all of these things, and thank you, right?
Yeah. That's such a cool story, such a beautiful thing. Hearing the why behind especially like you called it a social enterprise. You know, it's when you go at it from a standpoint of changing the lives of others, not just making money, like perhaps the original CPA desire. You're like, oh no, this doesn't have any soul. I need some soul in this. There's always some sort of story that's behind it. And I think it's one of the most powerful things to listen to and to hear, because that's not always what you get on the label. You get the QR code on the label, which is super incredible.
Right.
And that process you have laid out so wonderfully on your website too. Let's see what on the website it says: picked and processed in May, packaged in June, sipped in July, or shipped in July, sipped in August. So we're going from May to August with the entire process, and knowing and seeing all of the people that are involved in every step of the way is such an important transparency that I think more businesses need, and I think more consumers need to realize, and you're helping bring that to light, which it just makes you think about it. Who grew my lemon balm? I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. I know it's organic, and I know I bought it in bulk at Natural Grocers, but I could have had a different option. I could have bought it somewhere else, and I will pleasantly enjoy it until it's gone, and then I'm going to think a little bit more about where I can get my next package of lemon balm tea. Do you have lemon balm?
We do have lemongrass, yes.
Okay.
And that's from our own farm as well. Yep.
There we go. I love it.
Yeah. And I think I also wanted to tell you a story about, one of the other ways we're really trying to connect and bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And I always give an example of the tea tourism, immersive tea tourism program that we have. While, the QR code, it's a very simple way of connecting the producers to consumers. What I've always envisioned is that connection part is so strong for me. Connection part is one of the main things for me. And then what I've always enjoyed, and I think this also has to do a lot with the trips that I was making in college to these different parts, and bringing all people, American students from US and then to rural parts of Nepal, and doing all these work. I think that has a lot of influence in this, but I do a immersive tea tourism program. And I always give this example of one of our chefs. So in 2017 is when I was able to take a chef from Napa Valley to our farm. She had not been to many places, but she was so humbled, and she so wanted to go to Nepal. So her and one of my tea customers from Canada, we made the trip to our farm. And it was great. It was amazing. And then one day in our farm, so what happens in the immersive tea tour is 2 days in Kathmandu, you see, different heritage sites, not really touristy, but I want to give you a feel of the local aspects of all of these. So, and then the third day, you actually visit my garden, which is not an easy journey, because you have to go from, 45 minutes of flight to the southern part of the country, and then 5.5 hours of drive from southern part to the eastern northern part of Nepal. And that's where the farm is. And then in the farm, what we do is basically in the course of 4 days, we show you exactly how the tea is made. Not just show you, but really get you immersed in the place, where you carry baskets with me and my farmers, and you pluck those teas yourself. And you process these teas in the course of 3 days yourself. And by the end of the whole trip, you have a bag of tea that you made from start to finish.
Oh, cool. And
you make your own teas, right? And that is the time when you will realize how difficult and how, tiresome is just making that one small batch of tea, let alone the batches of tea that the whole world consumes at this point. So what happened with the chef is I and my Canadian customer were having a small, technical talk at the manager's tea tasting room, and I could not find the chef. I could not find her. So I was, hey, and our farm is basically, it's kind of like an open book. Mm-hmm. It's not like other tea farms where you only get to see what the manager wants you to see. Sure. But ours is more like, hey, you can feel feel like this is home and do whatever. Like if you want to help out, go ahead, help out. If you want to just sit down, relax, read, whatever, do whatever you want, right? So I could not find the chef. And then the scene that I walk into, I was trying to find her everywhere, and then I went to the kitchen. And the scene that I walk into is still vividly I remember that scene where, she was laying down on the ground, rolling bread, passing it to my cook, Pushpa, who is teaching the chef how to, make that. Her name is Tracy, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And Pushpa was teaching Tracy how to roll the bread, and she was getting it from her and then putting it in the firewood to make the bread.
Huh.
And they made the dinner that night. And mind you, Pushpa cannot speak in English and does not understand English. Tracy cannot speak and understand in Nepali. So people who have passion for food are just giggling and laughing and kind of working and made their whole dinner that night, right? It was just amazing. And then on the third day, it was kind of hard to separate them because both of them were crying. And
as I am about to again.
and Tracy basically gave the bangle that she was wearing to Pushpa, and Pushpa gave whatever she was wearing, a hair clip, to the chef, Tracy. And I still remember what Tracy told me on our way back is, hey, Nishchal, you know what? I'm never going to complain about the kitchens in the US. And she is still one of our funders who helps us fundraise for this school, the kitchens in some of the schools that we're building. And just imagine that connection is every single time Tracy is sipping a cup of any tea, or especially Nepali teas, she's going to get reminded of that time where she was rolling the bread and helping out make the dinner with Pushpa in eastern rural part of Nepal. And when she's from California.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Pushpa, on the other hand, she has been making teas for over 20 years without even knowing who the hell are we making all these tons of teas, right? Now she can put a face to the product that she's making every single day. And even this time when I was back in the farm, she was asking me about Tracy and many other people who have visited. So it's that form of connection which is benefiting not just the Western people to get a feel of what the tea making process is like, but our farmers to gain an understanding of who are these people who are drinking these teas that we are making. So it's a blend, and that connection is so important. And that's just one other way where we really try to foster connection and just bridging that both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that has been one of my other significant moments in life, if I had to say, where I knew I was onto something. It was something that my heart desired to do. So yeah.
Are these tea tours something that you're going to, or that I would assume you want to pick back up post-pandemic world when group mass, let's see, non-essential travel. There we go. How could I forget that phrase after the past year? Non-essential travel is opened back up. That's going to resume.
Right. Yes. We were planning for one this year. Of course, it's not going to happen, but hopefully by next year. In 2020, we already have about 4 people interested and actually registered. But we generally don't try to take more than 5 people in one tour because it's all about, that connection and really getting to know the people and really having a great experience, personalized experience. And rather than, being in a mass of 20 people and just seeing and taking an Instagrammable picture and putting in, hey, I was in a tea farm. I don't want that.
No.
So it's a very small groups that we take, but we do multiple. If the need be, we do multiple tours every year. But generally, we try to do at least one in the spring. In the summer. So we're planning for 2022 summer.
Okay, summer of 2022. So if folks want to check that out, they can find that at nepalteallc.com. I'm assuming the information for those will be posted on the Nepal Tea site.
Yes.
Excellent.
They'll be on a tab that says tea tourism. And actually, you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about because in that tea tourism tab, you'll see all of our past tours. You'll be able to see what we have done and who are the people that have gone towards. You'll be able to see Tracy making that bread also.
Oh, oh, cool. I do remember that part of the website now that I'm thinking about it. Yes, I did click on it to see if there were any scheduled right now. I know a few of our previous coffee roasters have tours like that as well. Mocha Origins, a guest from I think 5 or 6 times ago or so. Jeff Abella, they do coffee and tea in Cameroon, and they have things like that as well. What a cool program to have to really make that connection, not just telling the story, but getting to experience the story of the tea or the coffee or the chocolate, whichever product is in concern, I suppose. Such a cool thing to do that everyone gets to go and see that, because we don't. I live in the Midwest. I grew up in Iowa. I've been to Brazil. I'm thankful that I've been Eastern Europe. I've done quite a bit of traveling, but it's still been, in town mostly traveling. It has not been to the more rural areas where tea harvesting would happen. So that's
Right?
not something I'm very connected with, really, and that'd be a cool thing. It's on my radar. Whoo! It's on
Yeah,
my radar
absolutely.
for sure.
Hmm.
Excellent. So
Yeah.
with the community building, with your producers, with the consumers, really, I can see definitely the tea tourism being so beneficial and such a close knit relationship between consumers and the teas. But how about the farmers and the growers? You said that it was in 1986, the original Your Father's Tea.
84.
84. Okay, okay.
84.
How did they become certified organic? That could seem like a complicated question, but I know to be
Hmm.
organic, there's definitely a lot of cost involved. And why is organic so important to tea, most specifically?
Yeah, Julia, thank you so much for asking that question, because I think that is one that we, rarely ask. We've always known, hey, organic is good, but why really is one of the most important questions. And especially in tea, one of the most important things in tea that people need to understand is tea leaves in its complete process, anywhere in the world, is never washed. So think about if there is a tea farm where you're spraying chemicals and all these different things. It's obviously going to be in the tea, but it's the first time it gets rinsed really is when you're making that cup of tea. So think about that and think about how you're really getting all these different chemicals and all these bad stuff right directly from your cup of tea. So that is the most important thing you can take is anytime you're drinking maybe other beverage, at least they are washed and done in the process of making these products, which is still having something that has a lot of chemicals and other pesticides and all of that. It's not good, obviously, but still, especially in tea, it's never washed. So you should really be looking at trying to get organic teas. That's only one aspect of it. The second is obviously you should not be consuming anything that has a lot of these, pesticides just for health reasons. The other one is also all of these farmers who are spraying chemicals and all of these different things. They do not have the proper gear and proper, uh, protective equipment that they're using. So if you're not organic, these chemicals are directly affecting the farmers that are actually using them in the fields. So there's multiple different reasons why you should be organic in tea. And I think my father found that, you know, knew about that a lot early on when, the organic movement really started in the early 90s in the US. But, even with 1984, he had this vision of or not spraying chemicals, or at least not letting Mother Nature really, uh, have other external factors come in and just do the land in other ways. So the natural process of applying, only organic manure, like and having kind of like a regenerative farming, is what he had envisioned. So, of course, as you said, it's not easy. It's absolutely not easy and very, very costly. But it has always been a priority for us. I think one of the key things to understand is yes, everything comes at a cost, but are we able to really, recoup that cost by adding that value? And with organic and being certified organic, we do. I think we're on a mission to really educate people to be using healthy foods or just consuming, knowing what people are consuming, right? Creating conscious consumers. So I think it's obviously, even though it's super costly, what we have really made that one of our unique points, and also really a point that would really benefit not just the producers but the consumers as well. So, as you said, all of the farm, it's not easy. But what we do with some of the funding that we receive is, and the sales of the tea is one of the priorities. Is always has been to really have that standard of products with a certified organic products. And we also have extension areas where we collect tea leaves from other different small farmers, and we certify them organic because, of course, they do not have the financial capacity, and at the same time, they do not have most of them are not literate to actually be doing all of the, documentation and all of these paperwork to be able to get to a certification standard. So we actually help them to receive these certificates, and that has really benefited for them, so they are getting higher prices in the tea leaves that are collected, and at the same time, it's healthy for them and healthy for the consumers. So we really fund all of the certificate programs with other extension area farmers, and we are really trying to get into a way where we can create this nonprofit in Nepal or somewhere which can really fund a lot of these other smaller farmers that are not able to afford these costs, because it's huge, obviously, but it's great. It's something we need for sure.
Sure. So you are covering the funding to allow your farmers to become certified organic farms, so that it's
Yes.
beneficial for
So
them,
no,
beneficial for you. Everyone wins, and they wouldn't otherwise be able to do that.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just me, but it's a connection and a collaboration between some of our buyers, our factory itself, and the company that we have in the US. It's more of a collaboration of all of the entities that are there in our supply chain and our integrated company itself. We all strive towards this, and there are some donor projects and everything that have helped in receiving and really getting this organic movement a little further away.
That
Yeah.
you're really looking at sustainability from perspectives on all sides, not only just for the company, but for the soil, for the growers and the pickers, or you called the plucking the tea. Yeah, organic is such an interesting certification. I know this has been talked about before on the podcast too, because it is so expensive for one person or one company or one entity to get that certification. Sometimes it really can be cost prohibitive, but your entire network decided that this was important, and it's made it easier for everybody involved.
Yeah.
One more step of community in there with your certification process. Everything you do is based on
Yeah.
community. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. It has to. And then, yeah, I wish we would not need all these certifications, right?
Sure.
But, I wish, because, of course it is costly and there are so many different entities in many different parts. Certification is in itself such a interesting topic. It could be a 2 hour long conversation right here, but it is quite interesting but I wish we hadn't people didn't have to go through all of this, but at least there needs to be somebody who can check and balance
Yeah.
about what the processes are being followed. I wish it would be cheaper, but certainly it's not. But I think it's very much valuable in terms of certifications. But at the same time, I think longer run, I think it would be great and beneficial if, the whole relationship of a buyer and a consumer is not on the label, but really built trust about, these are the products. We have not sprayed any chemicals. Here you go. Come to our farm, see it for yourself. But this is what that trust and that relationship and community should win in the long run, rather than, just seeing a label on the package and thinking that's amazing, right?
Sure.
So I think it should be the norm. Unfortunately, it's very difficult in a complex world that we live in, but I sure wish that was the case.
It almost seems like it should be backwards. If there's pesticides and things being put on our food, there should be a label. Like it seems like everything has been known to lead to cancer in the state of California. Like every that label, that disclaimer is on so many products. Well, guys, it'd be really nice if we could just trust that like all of our food was actually going to be a more pure product instead of saying, "Hey, look, this is actually pure." Couldn't we live in a world where it says, "Hey, look, this is not,"
This is
but then the scales would tip too far in directions that all of the people with all of the money don't want them to be tipping in, now wouldn't they? So someday I'd like to think that the scales are leveling a little bit more. I think as consumers demand better quality, not only in the product that they are receiving, but also understanding how many hands, how long this chain of production is, realizing that there is a person, like you said, humanizing our food. There is a person a few steps down the line that is hopefully getting a better life when we start realizing what's going on and care enough to do something about it and ask for more, or at least support the companies that are doing more so they can keep going and keep having a bigger influence too, leading by example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you have another facet of Nepal Tea, which is the Nepal Tea Foundation. And you mentioned that a little bit in the beginning, kind of the history of what you wanted to build this business around, the social change and the humanitarian effort. The foundations of that are Educate, Empower, and Impact. Tell me a little bit about those. You mentioned the cow program and the rice and just basic necessities that every person should have a right to. You're helping provide those in addition to schools, and you said a library?
Yep. Yep. Schools. So scholarship for all of the full-time farmers' children. So Nepal Tea Foundation was really started for the reason that we wanted to streamline our impact work through a nonprofit entity so that it's easier to channel all of the funds, and we have a way to really give back a lot more.
Sure.
If we were doing it through a business entity, it would be all of the funds would not reach there because it would be taxed along the way, and then international, national rates and all of these things. Our impact would be significantly lower. So that was one of the major needs for the creation of a 501c3 nonprofit here. So what we have been able to do here, and also the timing is very interesting because we created the foundation during the middle of the pandemic, because what we were doing at that point was, so think about health insurance, right? We, in the US at least, most of the people, I should say, are very fortunate enough to have healthcare. And, at least, even though if it's expensive, we do have, health insurance, right? Imagine the same thing if there was some accidents, or if there was some, if somebody had COVID, if you will, right? What would happen in the farm? All of those expenses would really come from the person itself. If they can't afford it, oops, sorry, right? That was one of the worst things that I came to realize during the pandemic, that we are fortunate enough to not have decent health care, but people in developing world, and actually just my farmers, they don't have health insurance. In Nepal, even in general, people don't have health insurance. Insurance is not really a big thing. It's only starting to emerge, but it's not a big thing there. So what I was deciding was, hey, what if our farmers get contracted COVID? It would be a very, very financial burden for everybody in the family, right? So what we decided was, hey, let's create this farmers emergency fund and really get some chunks of our tea sales into that fund, and also have people who wanted to really help out to put some money in to this fund. So what we did through the 501c3 foundation is created a farmers emergency fund, which is really a fund where what we are the whole idea of that is to twofolds, which is one, try to build if we are not able to at least have health insurance, if anybody contracts COVID, then we would really fund their medical costs, one. And then the second was, if due to COVID, all of a sudden our farms are completely shut down, and then people lost, daily workers lost their wages, we would be able to give or compensate the lost wages through that farmers emergency fund. The reason it is called emergency fund is to be used during these emergencies,
Sure.
which was coming during this pandemic, and it was not something we had done, or a lot of tea farms, I think, in Nepal and other places don't have. We were really starting to create this emergency fund, which is going to stay there, right? If there is no need for it, it's still going to be there, and it's going to be used anytime there's an emergency, like this. So that's why that was the urgency behind creating the nonprofit to channel all these funds. But at the same time, it has really also helped us take our social projects to the next level. Right now, our goal for 2021 in the education side is we are matching about 21. In the year 2021, we're
Mhm.
matching 20 students to American donors for their education.
Mm.
We on Valentine's Day on February 14th, we matched our first kid. Her name is Nivedi, and her parents, both of her parents, cannot speak and cannot listen. So they're both deaf and mute.
Okay.
And she is, I believe, 8 years old. And she actually talks with them in sign language, has amazing English. She's the one who calls in our office, and her mom is a tea packer in our office. And she calls in if there's some emergency at the house, or she cannot come to the office. That 8-year-old is the one who's calling, hey, you know what? My mom is not going to be able to make it to work because we have this.
Oh my goodness.
It's super smart. And what we were able to do is we were able to match her with one of our clients in the U.S., and they both have basically committed for an educational scholarship for all the way through her 10th grade. So she is basically set in terms of getting good education in Nepal, which is being funded from some of our donors and well wishers and some of our clients. Our target is to get at least 21 donors in the US and be able to match 21 kids in Nepal who are desperately needing funds to get quality education in Nepal. And that's one project that we, and especially my wife, Nishu, is leading in the education side of things. In the empower side of things, it holds all of these other programs that we do to our farmers, the cow bank project, the housing project, the cooperative project for distributing basic necessities, and then the impact fund was obviously the farmers emergency fund, which we really wanted to have that impact right away during the COVID situation. And now more than ever, people in our farm are will be needing some of these emergency funds, because the cases in Nepal currently are through the roof. And India and Nepal, we're seeing crazy amount of COVID positives and deaths. I believe the average death was almost 200 people a day in Nepal just last week, where cases were 45% of people who tested were coming up positive. So it's a crisis in Nepal right now, but we're hoping things will get better soon. We've witnessed this all around the world, so it's not really not really different, but what is different is the timing when the whole other Western part developed countries have started to reopen and get back to normal. I think some of the developing parts of the world are just seeing the second wave and just are in the peak of their cases, and it's I think I really want the world to hear in a way about having solidarity towards what's happening in the Asia, and really help out in any possible ways you can, to really help the countries. So yeah.
Definitely. I think it's important to note, as you mentioned earlier too, unfortunately, Nepal kind of gets lost in the geography because it is not as well known perhaps as Thailand or India or China, Japan. The Russia, like the other countries in that part of the world, though it shares a border with India, if my geography is correct. So
Yes. So it's
mostly.
actually sandwiched between India and China.
Yes.
So it's a landlocked country. We don't have access to sea. So it's on the northern part, it's China, and in the southern part, it's India. So it's basically sandwiched between India and China.
How now with the Himalayan mountain or the Himalayas, does that offer any isolation, or does it pretty much run straight into India and China? What it like the border
The
situation? Not to get political with the border situation, but how close is it? Is there a definite divide, or does one country just kind of turn into the other with a little bit of border control?
um, in India, yeah, it's the latter basically. So it's basically open border with India and Nepal.
Sure.
That is one of the key reasons of whatever happens in India, it's very easily transmitted into Nepal because it's so close. It's basically an open border. People don't need visas or anything to go across the country, come in, and all of that. So it's very easily transmissible. But this is kind of like the sad part. But it's also very good in terms of trade and everything because we have like an open border, right? Similarly, in China, it's a little more secluded because the borders would be the Himalayan region where very few people have access to, which is you have to go through the whole mountain
Yeah,
on the
that
other
was
side,
my
right?
thought where those landed.
So so it's a little different in terms of the northern part, but in the southern part where it's all valley, it's fairly easy, and fairly both side of the countries are very easily accessible.
Sure. Which is, yes, like you mentioned, good for trade and good for transportation, but not as ideal when India is experiencing an extremely devastating outbreak and Nepal is
Right.
just right across the border. We
Yeah.
will do more than the thoughts and the prayers. If folks have the capacity to do so, donate to these organizations that are help getting oxygen tanks to India, to Nepal. I would assume hopefully there's a little bit of a crossover with that as well, with it being a fairly open border. But yeah, financial contributions just can't do enough. I mean, that's what it's come down to. Like you said, having a community effort and a global wide effort to get everything under control and make sure that our neighbors to the far east are doing well too, even if we might be reopening. And you're in New York, so you were kind of at the epicenter
Yeah.
in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So, oof.
Yeah. I guess I was almost in the epicenter of two of these major outbreaks where,
Yeah.
I was in New York and when it happened in March, and as I was, finally getting everything back on and, vaccinated, and went to Nepal to kind of add more farms to our network and really get connections and all of that. I caught myself into the pandemic, and thankfully was really able to get back to the US as soon as possible. Currently, there's lockdown and international flights are suspended, but I hope the situation gets better soon so that I can, go back and really foster the connections in the network, and really help out the farms to really get on their feet in a way, because COVID is of course a medical emergency, medical situation, but after that is another economic situation that plays out, which is not pleasant to some of these difficult rural areas. So I think I really want to be able to help out during that phase. So I hope the situation gets better very soon.
Sure. I'm thankful to hear the emergency fund is such a wonderful thing that I think not enough businesses perhaps use, and you've decided to use that to make sure that your people are taken care of. If they do contract COVID or any other sickness or any other emergency, they are taken care of by their employer, not just their families or hopefully another organization that could come in and provide benefit and relief. You are doing that for your people, and that is such an admirable, wonderful thing to take care of your workers like that. That's something that I think a lot other parts of the world, US included, I think just taking care of your people, whatever that means, whether it's family or your coworkers, your employees, your farmers, we just got to keep taking care of everybody and get through this together. Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. Well, do you have any advice for consumers, for entrepreneurs, for CPAs that just got burnt out getting their degree and want to put their heart and soul back into something? Anything at all?
Yeah, I guess I have very specific ones for consumers
Sure.
and anyone who's aspiring to start something. So the first thing for consumers would be two things. First, is know where your products are coming from. Literally, please. Next time you're at a grocery store, next time you're at a coffee shop, next time you're at a tea shop, ask. Ask the question, oh, I want to have that black tea. I want to have that coffee. But can you tell me where that's from?
Sure.
As soon as you ask that question, what happens in the entire supply chain is everybody in the layers start asking that question. And that is going to have a profound effect on how the farmers are treated, how the farmers are paid, and everybody is going to level up in the transparency and the traceability aspects of any of the products, not just tea, but many other products. Second thing, if you have the capacity, go for organic. I know at this point it might be a little expensive than what the traditional products would cost, but try to move towards organic. And if most of us do, in the longer run, it's going to be cheaper to buy organic than conventional food. And let's move towards that. And I think that would be two of my, also try to be a conscious consumer. I just finished reading Let My People Go Surfing by Ivan,
Yay. Yes.
Patagonia. It's one of my life-changing books and given me so much perspective on, being a conscious consumer and really taking care of the environment because that's the only place we are living in, really. So I think, let's try all of us being a conscious consumer. And for anybody who is aspiring to do something trying to start a business or anything, just do it. I think that is the simplest and the most, I think the easiest, but easiest to say, but the most difficult thing to do in practical. But let me give you an example. If I had gone around researching about tea companies and doing a lot of research, figuring out this and that, and taken my time, like a lot of time figuring out how or why, or even if I wanted to start the tea company, I probably would not have. It's so difficult, obviously, right? Starting a business is not easy. But if I had known all of the difficult things, I probably might not even have started. So don't think too much. Just start and let the journey become the teacher for you so that you're learning as you go along. You're pivoting, you're trying different things, and you really make a vision or you create a path of purpose while you're at it. So if you're thinking about doing something, just start. One small step is going to take you so long. So just start. Just start is my biggest advice and a suggestion for anybody who's trying to start something.
It's excellent advice. Doing is hard. Planning is the comfort zone. Doing is hard, but planning is also so much resistant. Oh man.
Yeah,
I feel that in my soul.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
where can we find Nepal Tea? The website is nepalteallc.com. Are you in brick and mortar stores right now too, or solely focusing on e-commerce?
We're basically solely focusing on e-commerce
Okay.
at this point. So you can find us on Shopify on our website, nepalteallc.com. And if it's easier for you, also on Amazon. And hopefully we'll be in, many of the grocery stores and, these places soon. But at this time, we're only e-commerce. So find us on all of our social channels, Nepal Tea LLC, and also on our website.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing about Nepal tea and just your journey and all of the points of inspiration along the way. Why it's so important to get organic tea because it's not washed. I will think of that every time now that I drink my tea. But also just offering that
Yeah.
connection. Like you said, every time you drink that cup of tea, once you know, you think about all of the people down the line that made that cup of tea possible too.
Yeah, absolutely. Super important.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nishal.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julia, for having me and putting up a platform there where, we people who have created some small steps can share our journey and hopefully, inspire other people to do the same. And I really, really thankful and so, proud that you have such a platform where you're, talking about us and talking about, all of these wonderful people who have been on the show, and bringing their stories to life, right?
Thank
Because
you.
not a lot of people do that. So thank you for bringing our stories to life. Really.
Most definitely. I'm honored to share all of the stories. I'm not necessarily the best doer, but I'm a fairly good story sharer. I'd like to think, so I can keep doing that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, this has
Cool.
been another episode of the Ethical Consumer Podcast. My name is Julia. I am your host for all of our episodes, and I have been speaking with Nishchal Banskota of Nepal Tea, and you can find new guest episodes every Tuesday, minisodes every Thursday, and you can find us at the.ethical.consumer on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, ethicalconsumer.com. I'll see you next time, guys.